Hello there, and welcome back to the CyberDudes podcast. It has been a while, a little over 3 months, actually. I am still Robin Thornton. I have not changed in that time, and neither has Omar Sangarima, who joins me. As always, decided to actually, come back as we restart this, as opposed to just saying, "No, fam, you took too long. I'm out."
Never for Robin. All right, maybe for others, but never for my brother from across the pond here. So.
No, but honestly, I mean, all jokes aside, I mean, so for starters, the pause was largely me driven. I'm always fine when you're carrying on with things. I needed a break. But and I know you don't want to like force anything, because as the saying goes, some things are just a little bit like farts. If you force them, they'll mostly be shit.
Pretty much, you gotta watch out.
But
can't trust farts in some situations.
No. But I'll be honest. Like every now and then, if you pushed a little, I probably would have been back to it earlier. But never mind, we're here.
Back.
And as our first thing back, we are going to do a recap of the things we have missed, because a lot happened, and we won't cover all of it because there ain't time.
Yeah.
But there's some big stuff happened. Some of it was mountain out of a molehill farce, which we'll get to at the top of it. The others were a part of a colossal mess going along on top of a particular molehill in somewhere north of Maryland.
Oh, you mean some things were
big,
some things were big and beautiful?
No, sorry, a particular molehill north of Virginia, that is, I should say, west of Maryland.
True. But not West Virginia, right? Because that's country roads.
Out. Get out. All right, we'll invite John Denver on.
Hey, man, if he can, I think he's on a flight that never ended. Oh, oh.
Oh dear.
Should have taken them country roads instead of them country airways. It's what, oh boy.
Yeah. Wasn't it like there was a load of rock stars that died in plane crashes? Wasn't it like Buddy Holly or something like that dying?
Buddy Holly, La Bamba, right? Richie Valens, wasn't he on the same? Or did La Bamba live? Now I have to look it up. Hold on.
Yeah, wasn't there like 4 of them all on the same flight?
The Big Bopper, right?
That's the one, the Big Bopper. Yeah, because I always remember. Well, not quite remember because I forgot it then. But I was like, what was the one with the weird name? And there's the Big Bopper. I was like, why would you? And he doesn't look like a Big Bopper either.
No.
Very odd.
No, it's kind of like the big guys called Tiny, right? I think they do it for irony.
Yeah. In any case, before we get on to what we missed, a small one that has just happened in my house. So I go upstairs. My wife, go upstairs. My wife says to me, she hands me a phone, and she says, "Do you think this is phishing?" So I give it a look, and it's something that's like, it mentions Avast. Now I'm going to scan through it. It's all like pretty well formatted, and the name on the name and the display name, the name and the signature, they match. The name and the actual the display name and the actual name in the address also match as well, and everything else, aside from it being like slightly vague in context, it looked as though it could be legit, like just a crappy written actual email. Just got an iPhone, so I do a force push on it, force press on the link, and the preview comes up, and it's no before, and I'm like, oh, well, I know that's phishing simulation. She goes, wait a minute, did I just fail a simulation? I'm like, maybe. I don't know how they treat iOS like previews, but you did ask me to have a look, and I couldn't see anything like glaringly wrong with that. So she's now kind of pissed off at me.
Of course.
But then I took a second look at it, and I go, if I needed to go and do a force press on the link to have any sort of understanding as to whether that was, because you can't roll over, so you can't roll over on an iPhone and do the hover thing. And not to mention as well, the address that it was coming from was like, it's the guy's name at security-avast.com, and I'm like,
Oh, okay.
kind of a weird domain, but could be. Like, it did look like halfway sketch, but I gave it a second look, and I went, that's basically your only red flag. Aside from it also being a little bit vague, because everything else is like perfect. So I got 2 points on this. One, that is like, what's the word I'm looking for? That is like disingenuously difficult as a simulation. Don't fucking do that. That is, yeah, it is entrapment. They'll have a really high fail rate with that, and people are going to be pissed, I would imagine. I wouldn't, as someone who has put together phishing simulations, I wouldn't be happy with that. I would be wanting to send that to people who I had given a heads up on the grounds of saying, like, hey, you're really good at this. We're going to start giving you more difficult stuff.
Like harder ones,
You won't know when it's coming, but we're going to make it so that you're aware that you're going to be subject to more difficult phishes because you're in privileged positions, whether you be a system admin or a high-level manager or something, and you've proven that you're good at it. We want to find out what your threshold is. But for like sending that to everybody, there was like maybe 2 red flags in that. That was unnecessarily hard, and I don't think that will foster a sense of that won't foster goodwill amongst that, where my wife works, amongst the staff there. But 2, it does raise a good point on the grounds that the formatting was good, the grammar was good, the spelling, punctuation, all of that. If part of the angle that they were trying to go for was like, this is what AI is capable of, then that's probably a fair reflection of the state of, potential phishing threats. But as a simulation, bearing in mind that people already have a particular kind of feeling that security departments are out to get them in that regard, like catch them out and not just say like, hey, here's some
help,
here's some practice.
Yeah.
Like that seemed unfair. But yeah, what do you reckon on them?
I
mean, not having seen it, obviously, but like just.
Well, sure. I mean, but I think you touch on where this sort of stuff has to move to, right? And I think we've at our 9 to 5 have lived in the contextisking.com, right, territory for a while, but I think that AI is pushing us there kicking and screaming. There's increasingly little to tell you on the face of bad grammar, right, or just terrible spelling or whatnot. There's not going to be those easy red flags where you go, wait a second. I still see those is like the smishing, right, the SMS phishing, just because I guess the tools just aren't as prevalent to set up campaigns like that. I would imagine they could be, but I think AI for straight up email. Me too.
I would expect that we will start seeing.
It throws me off that they're not there already, but I'm not. Hey, man, keep sending me shittily spelled things that I know for sure. Not to mention that never been to Maryland, and you're sending me, or not recently, I should say.
Yeah,
you're sending me DMV stuff. Exactly, easy pass, whatever. So cool. But I also think that the perception of the department is a bigger thing here. Not suggesting it at all, because I don't want to, crap on our compatriots, right, in another health organization doing the Lord's work. But that would definitely be something where I'd be like, listen, I'm going to buy you a beer. Let's talk about what the hell's going on here, because I have 2 cents of free advice. Hopefully I can mix it in with the booze. Not to sound too creepy, but and then we can come to some sort of agreement. But that would really be Chatham rules, open discussion coming in, and nobody's blaming anybody. But I think you're doing more harm to your department than good, because are your KPIs so tied to catching people? Because if they are, then that's a much grander problem on that side of things. But barring that, then who benefits? Right? What are you doing? Why? Exactly. What are you doing here, man?
You are a cop, my friend.
Exactly. Nobody trusts somebody with an immaculate record except for me. I have an immaculate record. Yeah, exactly. But that's where are you coming from with this?
Treat feds like mushrooms. Keep them in the dark and feed them shit.
Patriot Act, right? Sad that even since that movie's been dead and gone for many years, we still renew it. But that's a different show, I think, right? The surveillance from the Patriot Act. But
yeah,
anywho,
well, I mean, now we're working on OneNote. Throw them in, throw the ideas in.
Nice. I like it.
I never went on Google. Yeah. Honestly, I never went on Google Sheets enough to, or I wasn't familiar enough for it to be like that to be a useful planning tool. Anyway, enough of the behind the scenes. No, actually, you remind me there as well. I had to take a few seconds to remind myself of what Chatham Rules was as well. I like that reference. Like nothing off the table, no pearl clutching from either side of the aisle. Like,
when it stays here,
I
right?
wish we could have more of that. Yeah,
it's a cone of silence, right? Like it's just because we're all trying to get better. The places, and like I'm privileged enough to be a part of a couple of groups, around cyber that do engage there.
Yeah,
and that's where I get my ideas from, man. It really just like I steal them from other good smart people and try to bring them here. And it's amazing what you can dig into when like the ego is gone and the vulnerability is turned up to not 10, because then that becomes like like a Lifetime movie, but like 7 out of 10, maybe like a little bit more than 5.
But then also when you slightly off topic before we actually get into the cybersecurity stuff, but when you take the approach or go in with the mindset that hey, everything here is a hypothetical or theoretical. Some of it might sound absolutely just like, oh God, no, like diabolical or whatever like that. But then you go, you all go in with the mindset of, but we are just throwing ideas around, and it doesn't have to be the thing, like let's implement the absolutely diabolical thing, but maybe it sends you down a line of thought that goes, well, that's obviously horrific.
Yeah.
But there was something
peel it back.
There's a lesson we can take from it.
Yes,
something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Not that there was something there necessarily. Taking ideas from some diabolical people.
Why not, man?
Hey, anyway, right. Let's actually get into the cybersecurity stuff. I'm going to ask you, where do you want to start in our little list here?
No.
We said we were going to get hit the farce first.
Yes.
Let's hit the farce, and then I'll ask you where you want to go with it. So, if you do keep your eye on the cybersecurity news in any way, shape, or form, or even just the normal news, because they all picked this up and ran with it without actually fucking verifying any of it. 16 billion passwords in new data breach, which turned out to be absolute farce. This was a story that was released, a story in inverted commas, released by CyberDudes a couple of weeks ago. When was it? June 24th. So it was like before that weekend. So June 19th or 20th, something like that. And this piece from CyberDudes said, 16 billion passwords in fresh leak, researchers finding this like massive trove, and everybody picked this up. Everybody ran with it without actually checking, hold on a minute, what is this? Is this headline salacious bullshit intended for clicks, and actually once you read into the substance of things, it's a little bit more complicated and nuanced than that? Or is it actually a real fresh breach? And you can tell, my opinion is, you can tell who all the charlatans are, because they're the ones who just, the charlatans phishing for clicks, because they just plastered this all over their feeds. And I'm lumping in individual creators the same as I'm lumping them in with MSNBC and Forbes and Fox News and whoever else. And it was just bullshit. And all it does is it goes and spreads just a load of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Loads of the information was like, oh, go and change all of your passwords. Now, hold up. How many passwords do you have?
17 billion. Just the hair over. So I think they just got into my special stash, is what it looks like. I mean,
what's your confidence level that you could rifle off all of them for all of the services that you use right now with perfect?
Bro, I'm smart, but
accuracy.
I'm not like little man Tate type. Like, fuck out of here. No way.
Exactly. Yeah. So go change all your passwords. What kind of a bullshit piece of advice is that? Not from the perspective of like, oh, if somebody has potentially got hold of your password or if it's been involved in a breach, then you shouldn't change your password. You should if there's indication that your password has been compromised. But the impracticality of changing all of your passwords, I've done it once or twice where I've gone, right, I'm just going to do a whole great big like,
Purge.
just a purge, a big old switcheroo of them all.
Nice.
And I write them all down.
That's the technical term. I like it.
And I write them all down, thinking of every single thing that I do, going through my phone, looking at what apps I've got, yada, yada, yada. That in of itself takes me 45 minutes. Then I've got to look at them and go like, well, which ones do I really care about? Which am I going to prioritize? And then by the time I've got to it, and I've got to remember like what's all the, because not all of the password reset options are like the quickest, easiest, most intuitive thing to do. I've got to have all of the various websites there to like listed down to be able to do it as well. And then by the time I've done all that, I'm going, Jesus Christ, I've already done, there's a shitload of work already. I'm knackered. I'm going to go do something else now.
Yeah.
Then I have to chunk them down into, manageable Qantas. Well, we'll talk about Qantas later. Manageable little packets where I can say, all right, well, I'll do these 5 and I'll do these 5 and I'll do these 5. And honestly, to make sure that I don't feel like jumping off a cliff at any point whilst I'm doing this, I can only do them 5 at a time, and it takes me about 3 weeks. So telling everybody to go and change all their passwords,
you're owned again.
Bullshit.
In 3 weeks, right? By that point, like something else leaked and not through no fault of your own.
Which is life is now just going to be a never-ending cycle of just changing your passwords.
It's rolling passwords all the way down until you get to that last circle of hell, and then there's a bat with 3 wings and all that. But anyway,
turtles and passwords.
100%. I love what you just said though, because at the top of the segment with this really allows bullshitters to tell on themselves. I remember seeing it, having it pop up, and I don't know if it's just from being in the industry, but I was like, well, somewhat believable, but I'm not going to just share it without looking at it, but seems a little high. And then, and I don't remember who it was, but I remember it being from a source where I'm like, I've never seen you before share cyber stuff.
Yeah.
I think, we're getting to the age where like YouTube influencers are getting into sharing cyber stuff, which is, I think, part
Logan
of
Paul.
Logan Paul, PewDiePie.
Or Jake Paul, or which one? I don't know. Oh, I know. PewDiePie was the one.
There you go.
They're all the same for me.
It's just the really blonde hair and the punchable face. So
the general douchebaggery.
Yeah, really, and again, like go get paid, but like I don't want to hang out with you. But they probably don't want to hang out with me either, so it's mutual. We're just 2 gangsters passing in the night here. But it's the people are telling on themselves if they're sharing this nonsense, right, without vetting it. I think also though
they're going, I'm helping.
Yeah, but like also it's really because it was so believable. I think it's believable that our industry would do this and share it like that, and then pile on and go, oh my god, right? Like it's almost and this is like oddly navel gazing, but compare it to say what happened with CrowdStrike. Right, when it went down, I feel there was a lot more like the CrowdStrike thing actually happened, and B, there was more measured takes about like, hey, not necessarily a cyber event. I'm sharing it because I have a lot of IT folks on my feeds that might be and if you own a Windows device in the hemisphere, you might be affected. But there was a lot of caveating up front, and that was just much more measured of a take. And like, here we are helping. I'm passing along info. The CrowdStrike socials were actually pretty forthcoming, which I tip my hat to them. There's a couple things where I don't tip the chapeau to how they handled their stuff, but that's neither here nor there. Again, another segment, but like
that was where Andy said that they really handled it really, really well because they were just very transparent and open, honest about it, and just kept working.
And his takes are solid with us, of course, right? We're fans of Andy K, but you can see the difference there, right? Versus what the hell bot account is trying to amplify this, like you said, to farm clicks and to move this, but it really makes a farce of our chosen profession.
I think it's one of those. I mean, I think it's a double-edged sword because I think it is a good, or it was a good barometer for me to make a note of who's genuine, who's really like looking out for their stuff. Some of the thing that saddened me was that there's a couple of people who genuinely do come across to me as being quite technically capable, but they just but as far as I'm concerned now, they've kind of, there's some integrity that's been lost there.
Sure.
Like they've sort of tarnished their brand. One who I did think was like, because when I first read this, it was like 16 billion passwords, and my first thing was like, this is bullshit. I reckon this is another one of those compilation kind of things where it's just like being, let's take a breach from here and a breach from here and a breach from here that everybody already knows about, that's already been reported on,
and it's just like a time period.
Package it up, and then let's package it up and make it seem like a big new one. Like that was my instant reaction. Within a few minutes of having had that thought, I scrolled past one of Matt Johansson's reels on Instagram. He goes by Matt J with two Y's, and he's genuinely really good. And he was already all over this, going like, "This bullshit. It's just a repackaging. You don't need to worry about it. You don't need to bother. Don't listen to all these people saying you need to change all your passwords. Like, if there's indicators of any compromise on any of them, obviously, as we said, change them. But this isn't one of those like, oh my god, all hell's broken loose kind of things." And I was like, "Thank you, Matt. I suspected that was exactly the case, and he's really good. I trust his takes." Then on Monday, CyberScoop came out with the article that will be down in the description, saying like, it's all an absolute farce. They've got a director and global field CISO at Sophos, Chester Wisniewski, saying, these dumps have been announced for years. They're always just a recycled pile of credentials with a few new ones that's sprinkled in. So you've got a guy from an international anti-malware provider right there saying that, and it's just CyberScoop do a good job of dismantling it and saying like, here, this is why this was bullshit. It was sensationalist reporting. It's a bunch of nonsense. You don't need to worry about it. But that really ground my gears, because this kind of thing is really effective at undoing a lot of the shit that I try and, as a professional, try to quell people's nerves on. And all it does is send people into this stupid panic spiral. And it really pisses me off. So if you share this without verifying it, shame on you.
Yeah. Go fuck yourself.
How's your mother?
How's just fuck your mother? There we go. Let's round it out. Right. So
where do you want to go next?
NATO, for sure.
Ooh, NATO. Yay, NATO.
Yes.
Okay. Do you want me to open this one up?
Yeah, please go ahead, man. With your note underneath, I have to keep the giggles to a minimum, but yes, thank you.
But this surprised me actually when I was digging into it and being like, hang on, how much really? Yeah. So from a few days ago, I don't have the link quite to hand, but the headline: NATO defense spending increase with 1.5%. This isn't the headline, this is what I've taken from it, but NATO defense spending is to increase to 5% of GDP is their target, which they never quite get there, because for years and years and years it was 2% of GDP, and they always saw like most Germany, France, UK kind of manage like 1.7, 1.8.
A bunch maybe. Of it, yeah, exactly.
So it's a bit aspirational, but they're pitching at 5% of GDP being directed towards defense spending, with 1.5% of that being cybersecurity. So bear this in mind. We're now going from a situation where, let's take the UK, for example. All the money they spend on the aircraft carriers, the fighters, the army, Trident, the submarines.
Eggs.
We don't have an egg. Well, there wasn't. There's not an egg problem there. But imagine all of that.
Tanks.
Tanks. I thought you said eggs.
No way. Oh, I mean.
Well, no, but egg prices do.
An army doesn't march on an empty stomach. I get where you're going there.
That is true.
See, I brought it back.
Yes, sorry, tanks. Yes.
What the fuck would I say? When you're lifting off like major warfaring hardware.
I've heard they are remarkably effective dropped from drones.
Oh, Christ.
No, I obviously joke. Or do I? So that's 1.5% of GDP on cyber alone. So that's everything we spent on the boats, the subs, the fighter jets, the paying the armed forces personnel, etc. is now we're aiming at that just on cyber. That should tell anybody who has not been paying attention for the past 10, 15 years how much of a threat NATO perceives the likes of Russia, China, North Korea, maybe to a lesser extent Iran these days, or maybe to more of an extent. We don't know. We'll discuss that in a bit. But yeah, what's your take on this? Because this is the numbers are wild.
Numbers are staggering. I remember, I'll be full disclosure here. My note to this note was how far behind are we going to fall? Because I certainly haven't heard, in this big beautiful bill that we're, unfortunately having to get saddled with and live with here. Haven't heard comparable numbers. Haven't heard anything pegged. We're ripping apart CISA. We're having, basically funeral pyres of great careers of folks that were selflessly dedicated to public service in the cyber realm being absolutely shown the door, whether it's for, certain reasons or not, right? Like it's going the other way. My fear is, we're gonna start stumbling. We're gonna start playing catch up. We just don't have the amount of importance or funds directed here, right? Like if we're not spending this sort of money on drone capability, or the best drone idea is going to be coming out of NATO now. And am I okay with that? I'm always, the thing that gets me is that in my heart, and this might be weird, but like GDP spending on warfare I think it becomes an outsized, it's a ripple effect in terms of also the soft power that like a country or a block of countries have. So I'm not necessarily worried specifically on, oh no, we're going to fall behind on drones, we're going to fall behind on cyber. Like what I worry about is, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, is it just, or is the US going to have the same panache in terms of the perception of this country that we take for granted and that we think it's because we're just so amazing, when in reality it's a mix of like we used to do good, right? We used to help people USA wise, and then on top of that, we have a shit ton of guns and artillery. So be nice to us. There's a real politic mix there in my head. In terms of just cyber, I worry of then do great minds go elsewhere? Does innovation go elsewhere? And that's really, it's cool to see, but I don't think citizens of this country that aren't 70 plus years old know what it's like to live in a country that isn't the biggest, baddest motherfucker on the block. I don't know if people understand how to live in a country that's not that way, because that's the narrative that's been sold to us because we have been for a long time.
Yeah. I don't know. It's difficult to extrapolate out. I mean, for the sake of just context, right? So the EU economy is broadly similar-ish in size to. No, it's not. The EU population is broadly similar-ish in size to the US. The US is leagues bigger. So defense spending for the US this year's budget is around about $1 trillion, which is a wild sum of money. I've always been an advocate for you could easily have the biggest stick with just half of that.
But then where would all the pork go, Robin? Right? A lot of people like pork sandwiches.
Yes. How would the defense contractor CEOs maintain their lifestyles, and where would politicians on the Hill be getting all of their expensive steak dinners expensed? But the US's cyber expenditure is 0.14% of GDP. That's out of overall 3.4% of spending, defense spending. No, sorry. well, this depends on
defense
the
spending
source.
as percent of GDP, right?
Yes, but well, there's one source that says 3.4. Then I've got a BBC article in front of me here that's saying this is 2024 spending, so that was 3.19% of GDP was defense spending last year for the US. Which
the big beautiful bill is upping it though, as you noted. Yeah.
Yes, which in NATO context is still only that's third, sorry, only to Poland at 4.07 and Estonia at 3.41. I completely understand Estonia's position because they're right next to Russia, and who the fuck would not want to spend on defense when you've got those mad bastards next to you?
Especially now.
Yeah.
Shout out to Finland.
Well, the Finns, in that regard, the Finns have always done remarkably well with astonishingly little.
Yeah, they're just good at that shit. Yeah, and a lot of it's based, I think, off of espionage and also just big brass Finnish nuts.
Do you ever hear about the sniper, the World War II sniper?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I know where you're going.
Credited with approximately 100 kills or something like that with
the White Death.
The White Death with a Mosin Nagant rifle with iron sights. He didn't even have a scope.
No, man.
Absolutely.
All right, when you're the Grim Reaper, you don't need a scope, my friend. You're just out here snatching souls and being like, I have a tab that I gotta pay. I don't know where he got the skill from, and I don't want to ask.
Grim Reaper in his weekend outfit is the
white ghillie suit.
I was gonna say is snow camo.
There's no paratrooper gear. I know exactly what you're talking about, and it just looks like the abominable snowman with a big fucking rifle. Imagine that's the last thing you even notice. Like, where the hell is the dude from the Rudolph? And then you're fucking out of here. Oh shit.
So where do you want to take this next? So yes, basically this is fundamentally the US. If the US doesn't pick it up, and bear in mind they've been making cuts to CISA, if the US doesn't pick it up, that $30 billion in the budget for cyber, out of the $1 trillion defense budget, which is stupid. It's only it's not mad. That's going to be a real issue.
It is, especially with, I think, and probably the last, I'll beat this horse, but with what we've seen increasingly from a hybrid warfare perspective, where you can have $1 trillion worth of hardware, but if the lights don't turn on, or it's cold in the winter, or your GPS don't fucking work, like, good luck pointing any of those shiny rockets at anything of value or anything effective. And I'm sure there's redundancies, and I have full faith that it'd be almost akin to a really good hospital having to go back to paper, right? Wouldn't be nearly as effective, but I have faith that it could, a good hospital would still get the job done. Same with our armed forces, no doubt.
Well, actually, do you know what? Let's linger on that for slightly longer, because I just kind of had a bit of a thought experiment. It's the kind of thing that sort of 2000s Bond movies were made of, or even actually maybe earlier than that.
That's definitely your forte here. So yeah,
sort of late Pierce Brosnan era Bond movies. So during the Cold War, there was always that fear of EMP, and this is, we're going now back to probably like Roger Moore era.
I was going to say, probably a little bit deeper. Okay.
It's the detonate a nuke in
orbit or higher.
Mm-hmm. And the resulting electromagnetic pulse will take out all currently active circuits and just render them useless. It's also slightly GoldenEye as well, so this is mid-90s. And then, you're screwed because all your infrastructure's down. Basically, the only things that work were things that were powered down in the first place. But given that you've taken out massive chunks of infrastructure here, there, and everywhere, like, all of that stuff is going to be largely useless because there's big parts of the network are out. And so things can't talk to each other. Conveniently going now, because the next part of this relies on the service of everybody's favorite real life Bond villain, Elon Musky Musk.
There we go.
Starlink. If we end up significantly dependent on Starlink, and somebody finds some manner of backdoor into that because Musk loves hiring 20-year-old computer prodigies with extremely questionable pasts and
dodgy,
links to,
I believe is your word
yes,
for it, right?
dodgy. And links to Russian intelligence, and all of the information infrastructure is on that, and you take those down in a heartbeat.
We have to ask the Finns how to shoot through iron sights again, right? To bring it full circle. So I think, man's propensity or ability to find a way to wage war on their fellow humans is undefeated, right? It's like father time, and then also our ability to fuck with each other as a species. So I think we'd find a way, but that's really where I'm kind of coming at it from is, EMP or just the cyber equivalent to one is where you're going, right? Like what would happen if we I don't think we do well. I think all we have to do, in my opinion, is look back at what happened with the pipeline, right? It was one of those vital, and it was, according to recent reports here, accidental from the hackers' perspective. Like once they realized exactly what they had stumbled onto and taken down for the lulz and money, they were like, sorry. And the FBI was like, I don't give a shit. Fuck off, right? And that's when we also started hearing that the FBI could, hey, look at this, track Bitcoin payments, right? Or track crypto payments. That was intriguing. We started looking at they're sitting on Tor nodes now. So it's a whole, Patriot Act, right? We're going full circle on this show, boys and girls. I think that you see the reaction there that we're not ready for it, right? Increasingly, since the time periods that you mentioned in those movies, we've done nothing but get more dependent and more centralized in terms of our reliance on electronics. How many cars would be bricked or something like that if something went on, right? You mentioned Musk, that would be a really pretty paperweight. Pretty is operative, but you get what I mean? Like an expensive one, right? Right. Meanwhile, your diesel monster that your uncle kept in storage would probably be the only thing that would run, and you'd be thankful for them, and they go, "I told you so," right? So I just think that we're seeing more and more now. The folks that are good with kinetic stuff are, a lot of them are realizing that we still have to add this capability. For some reason we don't, and like you said in the note, and I'll do a little inside baseball here. Even if we got the money to the equivalent level, right? Say for example, somebody waved the magic wand and we had like a cyber FDR come in after Trump and go, cool, we're gonna spend on cyber. We'd have to spend it the right way. I don't know if we have a coordinated understanding, right? Unless we could, nominate Jen Easterly to come back and run CISA to the CISA power,
Plus.
just something that runs everything, right? Which is like streaming CISA, right? CISA Plus, but it runs everything.
CISA Max.
CISA Max. Now. Hey, don't do that.
Then
right?
Back to CISA.
CISA Discover, CISA Max, then back to CISA. Exactly. I like it. But
who decided to do that? Oh, some guy.
Not us. Just some stupid people in marketing. But you need something that level of coordinated, right? Because I feel as though that you can't. It's inextricably linked, the kinetic and the cyber realm now, and that Pandora's. You can't unring that bell. So I think we were sorely unprepared. The only thing, what's crazy, Robin? The only thing that would save us would potentially be the fact that a ton of our utilities in this country are on such outdated equipment and in so need of really true repair that they might be resilient to an attack that's that sophisticated, because it's assuming that we have the technical capabilities of Kosovo, right? That got rebuilt after the war, right? Or Romania or South Korea, right? Yeah.
That's
right?
That's the silos in the Dakotas, isn't it? The nuclear silos in the Dakotas, isn't it? Still run on 70s IBM infrastructure.
Dude, Matthew Broderick is still hanging out somewhere playing chess with somebody there. So yeah, man, it's baffling to me, and I do think that in our lifetime we see something like that though. I think it's going to happen. I don't know where.
I really hope not.
I have guesses, but I think it's inevitable. Right, because of what I said earlier.
I really hope not, for the reasons of, and I cannot believe I'm about to quote or paraphrase Marjorie Taylor Greene here. People don't want to deal with this bullshit. They just want to be happy, have food at reasonable prices, go have fun, and not have all this politics bullshit in their ear 24/7.
What happened to you on our break, man? I don't know. I think for me,
I don't know. Well, there was also that wild, there was that wild Tucker Carlson Ted Cruz interview as well. It was
where I'm siding with Carlson.
What world am I living? What universe is this?
I know. Where such or so like
I'm
John Oliver said,
mom
right?
going, go on Tucker, go get him.
It's a Sophie's choice if you hated both children, right? Like that's what the
John
the Oliver quote. It'll never leave me because me and my wife might have like actually cried like from just getting hit with that hot comedy gold. But yeah, dude, because it's the same shill that was like, oh, I love me some Russia, right? Look, the Russia has such clean supermarkets because there's nothing on the fucking shelves. It's easy to keep a supermarket clean when you have 7 loaves of bread and 5 pieces of fish.
When you don't have to take all the stock off the shelves to sweep around it.
That's what I do, because there's none. It's pristine. It's golden, right? When you would open a store, retail wise, it's always going to look pretty because no one's in it, right? Like that's so. Yeah, man. You've been body snatched apparently, so let's continue to the big beautiful bill. Why not, right?
Okay, and I think then we will probably
call it. I think so.
Call it there because it's. I mean, I did say we're not going to get through all of this, or we might, but there's a lot. So let's go big beautiful bill. We're AI adjacent with it. Take us through this because I feel like you kept a closer pulse on it than I did, because if I didn't spend time away from it, I would have gone insane.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good way to say it. Keep the 9 to 5 out of it. But big beautiful bill. It's I mean, is the term omnibus, or like it's just such a slice? It's a shit quiche. Like there has so many layers to this thing. There's so many different things that they just pegged onto this.
Playing fast and loose with the word beautiful as well.
It was sure. I mean, yeah, I won't say what came to mind, but yes, beautiful is doing a lot of work in those quotes, very, very much so. And
what I found funny as well is people have been referring it to the BBB, and I'm like, why is everyone harping on the Better Business Bureau?
Business Bureau. That's the only thing.
People have been really mean to the Better Business Bureau recently.
Yeah. As long as it's not a BBL, right? I mean, it could have as many adverse effects if done poorly, or in like
it seems like as much of a botch job.
Kind of, right? You're going to get cement in your ass, pretty much. So, so the big beautiful bill, as the note so eloquently states, right, was trying to stop states from regulating AI for the next decade, just putting in a moratorium because somebody somewhere did some Tammany Hall backroom deal about like, hey, the states don't have an idea, so let's not get crazy. And I want to take a quick second and pause here. So I'll get through the headline and then I'll take a beat here. But thankfully, the Senate, somebody right had a good hand on, like you said.
Yeah,
right?
thank fuck.
Yeah. That somebody said, wait a second, this might not be the way to go. I know that there were some feverish rounds of back and forth of like, hey, could we like scope this down? Maybe include some provisions that protect children at least. So. The compromise couldn't be made, or the compromise was considered too great to make. So they just said, fuck it, let's take this out of here. We'll revisit it. And like you said, thank fuck, because this was going to be absolutely insane. What I will say is this. There's a piece of me that's the pure technologist and conspiracy theorist, I'll fully admit, that goes, we have to get there before anybody else does. So I understand somewhat of the drive of like, hey, listen, if this would be like the Manhattan Project on steroids. If AGI happens and it's not wearing red, white, and blue, stars and bars, etc., then we're in for it, right? Then we have to learn Mandarin, and it's over, because that's. But barring that, and I want to say that to folks that might be screaming at us here, but I'll put that to the side here. But overall, thank goodness that this moratorium, which, with the way the courts are doing things nowadays, Robin, I'm not a lawyer, but could this have been finagled into like a moratorium forever or moratorium federally? I don't fucking know. I'm just glad that it got taken out of standing legislation that is now, as we know, passed both sides of Congress, right? The House and the Senate.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to get signed because it's his whole fucking thing that he's putting his head on. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. So then recently,
before the weekend.
Jesus. Yeah. No, it passed both. I don't know if he had signed it or not, but that makes sense. I know he was probably waiting with the RoboPen that he accused. But that would make it not a bill, right? If it was a RoboPen. Anyway, I'm so thankful that this was taken out, because this plus like no data broker laws would like you said. I was very close to just getting googly eyed over this. Like, what's your take on it?
So many. So I can. When I first heard about this, I had two primary thoughts on it. Number one was actually three primary thoughts. Number one was, sorry, excuse me, what the fuck happened to the states' rights thing that we're always banging on about when it's convenient for us, but like, you know, just ignore when we want to, you know, sort of put our foots down, or, you know, suppress the people we don't want to, suppress the behaviors that we don't want to happen. The other one was, I can see the excuse being, oh, well, we are putting this moratorium on it so we can implement federal regulation. At which point you just say, well, why not just put some fucking provision in there for federal regulation, not say, oh, well, the states are banned from any AI regulation for 10 years in lieu of federal stuff because federal law overrides state law.
Anyway, exactly, right? Yeah.
Right? Unless you get a state challenging it and the Supreme Court gets striking down the federal part of it. But that's that. So that's a complete bullshit argument. I didn't actually hear it, but I wouldn't have been surprised by it. Sure. And then the other aspect to it being stopping any regulation on AI. It's just handing the keys to the castle to big tech. And this is the kind of thing that has, because it means that they can, and to your point about, along with the lack of any of any federal data privacy
period, right? Where's the GDPR, you know, activity here?
Exactly. We basically work de facto on the basis of California Consumer Protection Act being, but like, you know, you don't have to follow it. You're just going to end up in a wrangling with California about that.
Or until it clashes with your home state, when your home state finally decides to get its act together in a good way. But then you need some lawyers to watch the other lawyers to figure out what the lawyerly view on where the clash ends and begins.
Yeah, and then you're in a position of like, oh, well, who do I care about? Like, is it, you know, am I bothered about serving 30 odd million Californians, or like, do I have to, you know, do what my home state says, and you know, sort of being caught between your mum saying one thing and your dad saying the other. It's just you end up being a confused child.
And your Uncle Sam trying to touch you. Yeah, I get it. Because that's what really, like, this is, I mean, it could just mess your whole life up, man. Like, what's going on?
I went through several different emotions processing that joke, and that was in a very, very short space of time.
You're welcome.
None of them from experience, thankfully. Where was I going with this? No, this is the kind of thing that got me to thinking, and I had this. I actually had a similar discussion around this with Will a couple of weeks ago, because you know, he knows the political theory. But my point is, I think there needs to be an additional amendment. I think we need a 28th Amendment around data privacy. And Will's argument was like, oh, well, the fourth should kind of like cover that, because it's, you know, it's all about improper search and seizure, et cetera, because I think this should happen. And it's not necessarily, you know, you can't, obviously, any amendments to the Constitution, it can't be one of those things where it applies to, you can't say stopping private citizens from doing one thing to another, because the Constitution is about what, like, it's your contract with the government or the government's contract with you. Sure. But I do not, you know, I'd be straight up advocate of saying the federal government is not allowed to collect or process data pursuant to you. And this goes to the whole Palantir thing, quite frankly, because that is creepy as fuck.
Yeah.
But the federal government is not allowed to collect or process data on you unless it pertains to things like IRS and tax,
sure.
Social security, or criminal, or immigration, or then criminal
sure.
matters.
Absolutely.
Outside of those, maybe there's one or two others. I don't know. Somebody can put an argument in the comments or whatever. But outside of a very limited scope of things, the federal government is not allowed to collect data on citizens without just cause. Very specifically outlined, or not, well, you don't want it very specifically, because there's got to be some wiggle room in it, but
sure.
In the realm of broad principles. Because it's got to the stage now where it's not, especially with AI and the fact that it's like, oh, well, we process this and we do this, do that, do the other, and then create new stuff. It's now seemingly not being considered to be your data.
Yeah.
You as the subject, you as the person that it's about, because somebody else has created that data. So they go, oh, no, it's ours now. And we can do with it what we want. It's like, no, fuck off. It's about me. I do not want it there. You don't have cause. There's absolutely no point for Uncle Sam to be keeping data on anybody for just in case we need it. Leave that down to the states and the local municipalities and the police forces, etc. Again, the FBI can on the grounds of if there's something criminal going on, but not just all 350 million people just for the fuck of it.
Yeah.
And I don't think the fourth covers it enough. I think it's become outdated, or the world has moved on, and I think there's a 28th Amendment needed around digital privacy.
And I'd also want it ensconced in that way, because I no longer trust the courts to leave shit alone, especially after what's recently happened in the court system. So unless you're going to come back and tell me, yeah, we're going to create like a 15-person court or some shit, which is completely unfeasible and it's not going to happen, I would not. There was a time where I'd be like, oh, that's, hand grenade for a mosquito. But now, absolutely agree with you. I truly, because
can you imagine with a 15-person Supreme Court, how many people you'd have to keep track of that you absolutely despise?
Well, I mean, along with, or you keep the 9, but then you make some enforceable ethics rules that folks have to abide by, and even give them a 3 strikes and you're out policy. The folks that I'm thinking of would be out over 17 strikes. His man Harlan Crow being his best friend there. But I think you just there's things that have been brought to the surface again court-wise that I thought we figured out and we could move on from. So, and that's been the counter argument, right? You don't want to see Roe v. Wade overturned, then fucking put in an amendment. I didn't think it needed to go to all that, but who the hell am I? Apparently I was wrong. So and in this case, I think something that is fundamentally, this could be a place where the government gets in front of the general population's understanding of how important their digital identity is. I don't think we have a government that cares to do so, especially considering what happened with Doge and the mixing of all chocolate and all peanut butter everywhere ever. Treasury data. Analogy. Yeah, dude, and it's just like the Treasury data just went every which way, and it's just our data got pimped out to somebody that paid for it essentially.
Some people will probably argue with you on the like grounds of the computer was signed in and signed out, and there was no access and all that sort of
complete nonsense.
No data removed, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, but regardless whether that is how true it is or not, how much we believe it or not, you're still in there, you're still looking at it, you can still glean some insights.
You can still glean some insights, and also those people weren't vetted.
Useful.
Those people weren't vetted, like, even just to the level of, like, not even a super top secret clearance, but, like, just a secret clearance, say. Those folks couldn't pass that sort of background check. That disturbs me. Like, on a deep fundamental level, right? Normally, I'm just like, fuck it, if the person can do the job, let them go. But there's certain places and certain things. Don't get me started on a rant there, because, like, there's not to mention, like, the semi tinfoil hat on, was it foreign operatives that were embedded on some of these, which I firmly believe there were. But even if you just take that away and you go, wait a second, that dude's a straight up cyber criminal. Yes. I have a certain moral flexibility around cybercriminal. I do, in terms of, hey, are you bug bountying someone? Are you like, so there's a little bit of leeway that I grant to, like, hard researchers sometimes. But no, this person in question fell firmly on the side of, he was a straight up cyber criminal, black hat person. Now has, even if it's not like removal, like if he wouldn't have pinged a DLP system, if the government had one, even if that's the case, no way do I want that person looking at that sort of data. Period.
Absolutely not. No.
Period. No, to end on, right?
Yeah. No, just ask any person. Would you allow us to grant access to your social security data to an immature 20-year-old who doxes people for the lulz and has ties to Russia? Fuck no! Get away!
No, absolutely not. And then that's just one swath of it, right? Like the thing that really deep down bothered me truly was the fact that now it was a panoramic view of any government data point that we've generated by the fact of being alive in this country.
And I think that's and that's where it is. That's like this is why I say about the did it, didn't it, about data exfiltration. That's a legitimate concern. I think the bigger issue is getting that whole panoramic view for something that historically has remained deliberately and strategically compartmentalized for really fucking good reasons.
And you hit the nail on the head, right? I get the efficiency argument. I get a lot of things that could be brought up there as for the onus of Doges in general, but there were certain folks that were nonpartisan that were going, this is a really terrible idea. We keep these things separate for very specific reasons, probably. And shout out to all my government employee folks. I'm not ragging on you, but you're working with what you're working with, probably with some idea towards it's a little patchwork. It's a little legacy. So the best we can do, at least as a mitigating control, is hard separating some of these data pools from forming a full lake where you can then just create absolute digital twins of any person that's been in this country for the last 50 to 70 years. Mm-hmm. The things you can do with that, like I don't even have a full concept of. I just know it ain't good.
I mean, I just think of any time you talk about like very, very highly sensitive stuff, my brain always goes to Mission Impossible, and I'm sort of thinking like, surely, William Donlow was definitely thinking, Christ, this is really inconvenient to have to do this password and key card and retinal scan thing to get into this big hexagonal room that's all pressure sensored so I can get onto this one computer that isn't networked for the sake of tinkering around with some names, very highly sensitive names on a list. But then they go, but that's all of the CIA's covert ops in Europe. Maybe the inconvenience is worth it.
I just honestly, it's just certain things, and I think we're going to be looking back in 30 years, 40 years going, how the hell did we allow this to happen? And what's funny is that's the most we could hope for. It's the best we could hope for, where we could at least in that time be given enough hindsight and hopefully we mature and wise up and go, wait a second. I don't know if it changes things, but
I think the answer to that question about how do we let this happen is probably a lot of immature emotional reactions, partisanship, and pearl clutching. That's how we got into this mess.
Yeah.
But anyway, on that bombshell, we will call it a day. We hope that you have enjoyed our return, and I don't know. I guess we're gonna have to figure out the schedule again.
Sure.
Yes, I think before the break we were playing with the idea of 3 weeks on, 1 week off, weren't we?
I think I'm playing with it now. Put it back in my head. So
yeah. Okay. So maybe that, maybe not. Maybe we'll see you next week. Maybe we'll need a week more to figure things out.
Maybe go fuck yourself.
Maybe go fuck yourself. What's for certain is you won't have to wait another 3 months. We will be back much sooner than that. But we'll give you a heads up on when.
Yeah.
Until then, toodaloo and stay safe.